Hey everyone, it's Liam the Deaf Doom Metalhead. I hope you're all well. Doing a different video again today. I watched Dennis's channel, the Analog Archives, and he was doing a response video to a guy called Matt over on the Dark Path channel where they were defending bad albums. So the concept was you'd pick albums that are either universally hated or, albums that in a band's discography you wouldn't necessarily go to that album and pick it up and then try and defend them, tell people why you like them. And I thought it was a really cool video because, like Dennis especially, he's a guy who kind of grew up and knows at the start of that like death metal scene, thrash metal scene, so he's got really good knowledge. And his picks are really interesting because obviously they're his take from personal experience. So someone like me who was born in '89 and I didn't start getting into metal until 2000s, I can't relate to that kind of thing. I can only relate to what I know from the band. So I've picked albums that I know are either really strongly disliked or style change, just really weird, like they've gone from one sound and then completely changed it on another album. So yeah, I won't whittle on too much. But the first band that came to my mind was one that I've always enjoyed. There's only a few albums of theirs I don't really like, and it's not really a band I go and listen to personally myself regularly, and that's Metallica. And you can safely say the first four albums, obviously classics to most people. Definitely the first three. The fourth one, for some people, they don't really like. But then after that, like the Black Album, and then it goes to this one, Load. Now, I can see why a lot of people don't like this as a Metallica album, purely because it's not a thrash album. It's not even really a metal album. It's more, if you took away the Metallica, like get rid of that bit, it's essentially just a hard rock album. I really like this album, and I still do. Me and my wife and the kids listen to this in the car quite a bit. Songs like 2x4, Until It Sleeps, and Cure. My eldest really likes those songs, and they're on his playlist constantly. And it's an interesting album because it sounds nothing like their back catalogue, like from the previous albums. Like the Black Album, you could probably compare this to, and that they're kind of going in that direction. But Harvester of Sorrow sounds nothing like this, and that's my favourite Metallica album. But even the band itself, image-wise, they changed it completely. I think it's Cunning Stunts, that live DVD. That was one of the earliest Metallica DVDs I got, and they had like jet black hair, kind of like what I've done. And yeah, it was just weird, and I can see why you compare like the James Hetfield with a really terrible looking mullet to a short hair, black nail varnish, that kind of thing. It's not really something a fan would want to see from their band, where they completely changed their image, their sound. But musically, I mean, it's really, really good. But again, it's you couldn't really call it a Metallica album if you were comparing it to the first four. And then this one, I remember buying this when it came out. I went and got this because at the height of my metal discovery, I was listening to a lot of new metal because that was all there was out at the time that I knew of. And I've said that before in previous videos. I discovered it all by myself. I had no friends or relatives that could recommend anything to me. And I picked up a copy of this, the Saint Anger album. Now, obviously this is hated by quite a lot of people. And probably for good reason, because if you're going to try and recreate a garage sound, like a natural band sound, which I'm assuming that's what they were trying to go for in this album, you wouldn't detune the snare. I don't know why you do that. I mean, it doesn't really bother me that much when I listen to it, because I don't listen to it in my ear. I try and tune it out. But when you think about it, even when they do it live, these songs, they don't do that. He doesn't detune the snare at all. So it's really unusual that he would do that on this album and kept it. And then all the other guys in the band were like, yeah, sounds cool. Not one person turned around and said to him, like, what are you doing? And there's no guitar solos, which is really unusual as well, because it's Metallica. Why not? And I know I watched the Some Kind of Monster documentary, and they mention that they're trying to go with the times and that kind of thing. And you can tell it's obviously all this album is probably Lars Ulrich with the drum snare, the comments about not having guitar solos, just doesn't make any sense. And obviously a lot of people shit on this album, and for good reason. I mean, it's not as bad as Lulu. I mean, that's fucking awful. But there's some really good songs on there, and I still quite enjoy this from time to time. It's not an easy listen. I'd certainly pick that over this one any day. But yeah, it's not bad. Invisible Kid, those are shit song. And then this band as well, this one was interesting because I discovered these guys again, exactly the same thing. I was listening to a lot of Korn and nu metal stuff, and this band's video was on TV all the time, and that's Sepultura's Roots, Bloody Roots, and the album obviously Roots. This is a nu metal album. It's not a thrash album. You know, I love really early like Sepultura, and that they've got the very early stuff sounds like kind of early black metal almost. Then you've got the almost borderline death metal approach on the Scott Burns albums. I think it's Scott Burns. I mean, this album's I enjoy this album, and I like the riffs on it. It's heavy as fuck. But again, you can see why a lot of people don't like this album when they're big fans of the early work, and they've kind of gone to the more detuned 7-string sound on this album. It's a lot slower. You know, it's a lot of building in songs as well, like Endangered Species, Dictatorship. They're all weird songs. Spit, Straight Hate. They're all slow songs. They're not fast, in your face. Thrash songs. They're all slow burners. But again, I really enjoyed this as a kid. I don't like it as much as because then I discovered the earlier stuff, and that shit's all over this album. I will instantly always go to Arise or the very early EP stuff of this band, and even the new stuff now I don't care for too much. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just Max Cavalera is Sepultura for me. And this one, Dennis actually did show in his video of it, Albums to Defend, and I thought I'd mention it too because I'm a big fan, and that is Celtic Frost, Into the Pandemonium. Now, I only got this 5 months ago, maybe, probably less than that actually, because I always avoided this album because I remember Mexican radio. I've got like one of the greatest hits they put out, Parts for the First Time Dying, I think it's the CD, and I heard that Mexican radio song and I was like, that's weird, because you compare it to early Celtic Frost, and then yeah, it's so different. And obviously you could go Cold Lake as well, which is even more different. But this has got a lot of weird stuff going on it. But at the same time, as some of the songs I really enjoy, it's a tough one. I have to be in the mood to listen to this one, because if you compare it with that one, that's a stone cold classic to me. I absolutely love this album. I never get bored of it. The artwork, everything about it is amazing. They even look the part, you know, the whole Judas Priest inspired look going on there, with a bit more of a gothic touch to it. But this, I don't know, I mean, they're not even dressed up like on the back, they're just wearing jackets and look quite casual. So it's just a very unusual album, and when you compare the two, they don't really sit well together. That one kind of chugs along really nicely, and that one is very stop-start for me. But again, there's some really good tracks on that. And then this one is quite a funny one. I watched a DVD of Anvil. Obviously everyone knows Anvil, the Canadian band that was quite big, I guess, in the 80s, and then kind of just fizzled out, and then they put out that documentary about their struggles in trying to get the band to be noticed again, and it was really, really popular. And being in the band for 10 years, you can relate to a lot of that documentary, like without getting paid, having to confront the promoter, you know, getting the attention of record labels, all that kind of thing. I've done all that. And they toured that movie on the riding on the back of that success, and I saw them in London with, I think it was Lauren Harris, and she was shit. And I saw her again, like Iron Maiden used to put her on as opening act, and they've just stopped putting her on because she's not relevant, interesting, and she doesn't do anything musically that's, you know, even worth being on an Iron Maiden, you know, bill. So she was on that gig, and she was supporting Anvil, and this is the album they put out just on the back of that tour, and that movie, This Is 13. And this certainly doesn't sound like classic Anvil by any means. It's nowhere near like classic Anvil. Doesn't sound like Metal on Metal, doesn't sound like anything like that. There they are on the back. They're a funny band because Lips as a vocalist for me is terrible. Like, he can't sing. He's a great guitar player, and I believe in the book he was asked to play for Motorhead, but he only wanted to do it if, I think it's Rob Reiner, the drummer, would do it as well, and he couldn't because obviously they had someone else. But as a singer, he's awful. Like, and it kind of makes the band laughable almost when you listen to the vocal style, because you just can't. The music's really good, but then the vocals just shit on it, and it's all out of tune and all the time. But there's some really, really good songs on this, and it's really, you know, the production wise, I think it was done by Chris Tanzager. I can't pronounce it. I don't know if I'll even focus on my camera. I won't even try. But it was a guy from Black Sabbath that helped, I think, mix and master, who did a lot of the Black Sabbath stuff in the late 80s. But yeah, 2008 release. Just, it's a weird album, put it that way. I really enjoyed it. There's that one. And then these guys, I'm a massive fan of. I have a tattoo of Candlemass. But this album I really, really struggle with. But there was a good reason for it. So this is Candlemass's Dactylis Glomerata. Can't pronounce it. I'll put description as I always do in my videos because I talk nonsense. This is a Music for Nations release from 1998. I got this purely because I'm a Candlemass fan. Candlemass logo. It's written by Leaf. In theory, it should sound really good, but what I didn't know was this was actually going to be a Crux album, I think it was. But the record label wanted another Candlemass album, but obviously the band weren't together at that point, so they kind of just branded it Candlemass, but it's essentially a Crux album. I mean, even the song titles, you look at it, like Abstract Sun, Molotov, Still See the Black, Dust Flow, they're all non-Candlemass. It's not epic doom metal at all. This is more stoner doom than anything. And as a big Candlemass fan, you kind of expecting to hear like Ancient Dreams, Nightfall, you know, The Day View. But it's not. It's nothing like any of them. It's completely different. And it kind of spoils it a little bit for me. So when I listen to this, I kind of put it on. Just close these screens to get rid of the reflection. You know, I put this on and I had no idea what it was going to sound like, and I was so disappointed. And I think I've only listened to this CD maybe twice in the years I've had it. And I only got it purely because of the Candlemass logo. So that's an interesting one if people want to check out something completely different, because it doesn't sound nothing like Candlemass. What's next? Okay, this one. This is another one. So this is a band I'm a massive fan of as well. And they put this album out, and again, it's not an easy listen. That's My Dying Bride's 34.788%. I mean, straight away the album title was shite. No one's going to buy an album with that title. No one. But again, the reason I have it is purely because it's My Dying Bride. And there's probably maybe 2 tracks off this whole album I really enjoy, and there's a lot of experimental shit going on this album. And you try and compare it to the previous work, and it's not the same. This one came out in '98 through Peaceville. This is a 2001 repress. And yeah, the tracks on here like The Whore, The Cook and The Mother, that's really good. Bass level erotica I quite like. It's got that kind of doomy kind of melody over it. But like Under Your Wings and Into Your Arms and Heroin Chic, that song is awful. I mean, I have no idea what they were thinking when they did that. It's got like the phone call stuff where he kind of leaves voice messages, like in that very American movie style way, where like you press play on the voicemail and and you hear someone's voice. There's a lot of that going on in this album, and it just sounds shit. It just bores me to tears. But there's a good couple of tracks on there that makes it worth listening to. And as a collector, you know, you have to have it in your collection. And I only just picked this up this year. I mean, I've known about this album for ages. Had it on MP3 for years, and I literally only listened to the 2 tracks I mentioned. But I got this really cheap, and I couldn't resist. But yeah, that's a really good one to check out if you want to challenge yourself. And then this one, this is a fun one. Like, everyone doesn't talk about this anymore, but through high school, this was the last Korn album I ever bought, and that's Take a Look in the Mirror. I mean, there is no exciting songs on here. The music is very bland. It's pretty much the track by track is the same. There's very much no difference in the riffs. But I remember really, really enjoying this album as a kid. Right Now, Break Some Off, Counting on Me, Y'all Want a Single, which my eldest son has discovered, but the edited version without the swear words. It's a good album. I like it, but it's nothing like the first album, or even what's my other one, Issues, I really like. It's an interesting album, and no one really talks about this one anymore. It's all about the early stuff, which is, you know, fair enough. This one came out in, it must be mid 2000s. I remember buying it brand new. Doesn't say, but yeah, it's an interesting one. But again, you know, Korn again is one of those bands I saw them live a couple of years ago and they were all right, and their last two releases have been okay. Trying to look at it from a nostalgic kind of point of view for me, because musically they don't do anything guitar wise. I play a 7-string guitar, but I don't do anything like they do. I just play it for the B tuning. They try and do all sorts of weird shit on it, and that doesn't really interest me at all these days. But musically, that at the time as a kid was the heaviest thing on the planet. So yeah, go check it out. What's next? This one's a fun one. So again, this band I've dipped in and out of for years. They're not a band I go to. Millions of people love them. I've seen them live a good few times. And as a metalhead, you kind of assume you have to like them. And one of the early albums I got was Somewhere Back in Time, I think it was. And then I stopped buying Iron Maiden albums, and then I got this one purely based on the artwork. There you go. The Final Frontier. I saw the artwork for that. I thought I have to have that. One, it looks fucking amazing. As a metalhead, you've got to have artwork that makes you want to buy it. And now Maiden albums normally do have that, and especially with this one. I mean, I still love the artwork now looking at it. I had this on a mouse mat when I first started working in my first IT job. I used to brag about how cool I was because of my mouse mat. But this album, it's a hard one for me. Like, the first track is 8 minutes and 40 seconds long, and as an Iron Maiden song goes, that's just too long. I remember like Run to the Hills were the first ones I heard. The Trooper. I had an uncle who was a big Maiden fan, but at the time I didn't know it was Iron Maiden. I just remember him put them on, and I remember the Eddie because I think it was Butlins. I went on holiday and I had a sticker transfer tattoo of the Trooper, and I thought it was the fucking coolest thing in the world. But yeah, this album to me is a hard listen, and it's really disappointing when I first bought it. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I was really let down. I only just recently started watching videos of people defending albums similar to this. And I remember, I think it was Cloudy Marder showed this, and he's like Iron Maiden albums, and he was recommending songs off it, and I checked them out, and I actually quite enjoyed it. So it's funny how I've gone from purely hating the album, ignored it completely, to kind of starting to appreciate it more now. And I think it's just an age thing. When you get old, you're a bit more respectful of your music when you listen to it. I mean, there's some dudes who'll just outright refuse to listen to anything straight off the bat, and I was one of those guys for a long time, but recently I've kind of just opened my mind again. So yeah, it's not a bad album, but it's certainly not one I would jump out to go pick up if I was going to go and listen to some Iron Maiden. Okay, so this one was inspired, I'll grab it off the floor, by Dennis, because I saw his t-shirt. He was wearing a really cool Gorefest t-shirt as he did the video. And it reminded me of an album by them that no one really likes or talks about in their back catalogue, and that is Chapter 13. So Gorefest are a Dutch death metal band who were massive in the 90s. I've spoken about these guys loads on my channel, but they were a brutal death metal band. They had really good vocals, really good guitar lines. The drums were really heavy. They had everything going for it. But then they started to kind of go into a Thin Lizzy sound, and the one before this as well was just the same. But this album it's like Death and Roll almost. It's got still the guttural vocal style, but the guitar work is more Thin Lizzy. And it's a weird listen when you compare it to the very first stuff like Mind Loss or False. They're totally different to this album. And bands grow and change, but their last album they obviously went back to what they know, and that was pure death metal. But this is like the first song, Chapter 13. It's like a Thin Lizzy song. It's all, well, you know, serve the masses. You know, it's almost hard rock, you could say as well. But yeah, they're a band Dennis reminded me had changed their style dramatically. And then this one is a funny one. So obviously everyone loves Judas Priest. Well, everyone should love Judas Priest. And Rob Halford is a brilliant vocalist. one of my favourites. But Fight, this album, obviously you can tell he's trying to be something he's not. So he's trying to go for that Pantera sound that's just not there. But this album I really enjoy. Like the song Human Crate, which I mentioned before, Legacy of Hate, you know, Gretna Green. It is nothing like Judas Priest, so you wouldn't even compare it to Judas Priest or any of the vocal stuff he's done before. But his vocals are really, really strong on this album, and it kind of saves it. The song that he does on his own with the piano, In the World of My Own Making, that's just him singing like a ballad, and vocally it's amazing. But you know, if you try and compare it to anything else, it's just not the same. Like Painkiller or Breaking the British Steel, you know, all that kind of thing. It's nothing like that. So I know a lot of people probably get bored of this album. It's not very interesting. But I got this just purely because I love Rob Halford's vocal style, and the song Human Crate is so fucking heavy. It's just brilliant. So yeah, that was another one I thought of, Fight. And then this is a kind of newer band that a lot of people don't like this album. They've only put out 3 albums, and this is probably the one that gets least spoken about. And that is Memoriam with the Silent Vigil. A lot of people don't like this album. And then when they put the 3rd one out, they instantly want all those fans back. This came out through Nuclear Blast in 2018. And then a year later, they put out the next one. And I believe they're actually they're now recording another new one. So that'll be the 4th one in the space of 5 years. That's pretty cool. But this, I actually really enjoy this album. I mean, the artwork straight away is awesome. Love the artwork. I don't know if you can see it. The light here today is shit. But the album artwork's awesome. Full gatefold. You can see it in all its glory there. But this is, you know, I love Bolt Thrower and Benediction and all those kind of bands. And that's a kind of good cross between the two. So it's definitely worth people's time. I mean, it's heavy, it's chuggy. It's not as interesting as the 3rd one that came out after this one. And the first one as well, that's really good. But I mean, they're all, to me, I could put them all in order, and they all sound great. The last one's obviously the best one. You can see the songwriting's really stepped up as a band. But again, I really, really enjoyed this album. You know, but a lot of people don't like it. And then lastly is a band that has so many different lineup changes throughout the years, apart from one dude. And that is the mighty Tony Iommi and Black Sabbath. They've put out a lot of albums, you know, with the Black Sabbath name on it, and they've obviously had Dio, Ozzy, Tony Martin, and this guy. It's just, I mean, I love this album. Ian Gillan, Born Again. It's a CD copy. This album for me, I remember getting this purely based off the album cover. So I saw Black Sabbath, Demon Baby. I was like, I have to have that. And then at the time I was listening to a lot of classic rock when I got this. So Deep Purple, there's all sorts of bands, Thin Lizzy, Led Zeppelin. So I didn't know there was a Black Sabbath album that had Ian Gillan's vocals on it. And obviously only the only reason he was in the band was because he was pissed. And he agreed to do it, but he had no memory of it. And they've got loads of parodies from this on the Spinal Tap Stonehenge stage set. But again, this album's got a lot of classic songs on it, like Keep It Warm, Born Again, Zero the Hero, obviously the most known one off this one, Disturbing the Priest, Stonehenge. It is a really good album. I really enjoy this album. I still listen to it now and again. You know, obviously a lot of people would say Ozzy Osbourne is Black Sabbath. To a point I would agree, but he's not my favourite vocalist for Black Sabbath. And some of their albums are really boring. There's old tracks on there I really like. But I just like these obscure albums that Tony Iommi did, because some of the riffs on there are brilliant. So there's that one. And then this is my actual favourite Black Sabbath album, and no one really talks about this one. And that is The Eternal Idol, which has Tony Martin on vocals for this one. This is a 1987 pressing, so first pressing. The light is terrible today. I love this album. I mean, the artwork is random. I like the artwork, but it's not something you'd go out of your way to go buy. I mean, you've got Black Sabbath just kind of pushed into the corner there, a statue. But some of the songs on here are fucking awesome. The Shining, Ancient Warrior. My favourite is Eternal Idol. That is probably the doomiest Black Sabbath riff Tony Iommi has ever wrote. It's heavy as fuck. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's just brilliant. There's so many good musicians on this one. We've got Eric Singer on drums, Bob Daisley, Dave Spitz. They're all on there. So yeah, I really enjoy this album, but no one ever talks about it. So I thought I'd probably mention this one. Out of the two, I'll choose this one, but they're both really, really good albums. And there's loads more I could have gone through, but I don't want to make this video too long. So thank you, Dennis, for the idea, and obviously Matt at The Dark Path for starting the whole thing. I'll obviously link their videos down below so you can check it out. Please subscribe if you haven't done to my channel, because it obviously inspires me to do more videos. And thank you to everyone that's watched this video. I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.